Lord knows I have.
Because next time I come for you, I'm going to want some cocktail. Fruit.
Welcome to the Jacob Wayne Show. This is your Jacob Wayne solo episode once again. We'll see how long this one lasts. I don't feel like I came across a lot of too much stuff to chit-chat about. What am I sipping on? Coffee. Any fun food things? Instead of those Hawaiian haystacks, the chicken sundaes, instead of chicken, I use bacon. Super tasty. So that's a bacon, cream of chicken soup, Colby Jack cheese, shredded, pineapple, jalapeno, chow mein noodles on rice. Super tasty, super filling. But that's really all that's gone on in the food area. So let's just move right into music. Still don't have a drop for it because I want to save that for our boy Kellen. He should be on the next episode. With that, let's just move right into it. So with new releases, there was a new release from Sonic Youth. If you know that band, they were a big kind of art rock band from the New York scene in kind of the 80s, if I remember correctly. They've been dead as a band for a while. Not dead in real life. I think they're still around. But dead to me. I'm kidding. They're not dead to me. I love Sonic Youth. But this new release, In, Out, In, is, I think, just a collection of B-sides. I threw it on the other day. Kind of was anxious, and I don't know. Maybe it's different for everybody. I'm sure it kind of is. But Sonic Youth is not something I want to put on when I'm feeling anxious because it's already got a weird sort of tension with the way that they do tuning in their guitars and just tonality in general. Let's see what else here. Oh, a new track by Likili 47. I hope I'm saying that right. Likili 47 released a new album or track called LL Cool J. Haven't listened to it yet, but she's a lot of fun. Tends to just release a lot of singles. A new album by Decapitated. That might mean something to some of you metalheads, but called Cancer Culture. Ugh. All right. Maybe it's good. A new EP by Tropical Fuckstorm and King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard called Satanic Slumber Party. Haven't given that a listen yet either, other than a really quick sample, and I don't know if I gave a shit. New track from The Smile. That group I think we've talked about before, but that is the Radiohead members Tom York, Johnny Greenwood, and Sons of Kemet drummer Tom Skinner. They're just kind of a post-punk progressive rock Afrobeat electronic music kind of side project that was started during the COVID-19 lockdowns. And I guess they played a performance before back in 2021. It looks like they're about to begin a small European tour in May 2022. So out of all the new releases, I would say that was the one that caught my attention the most. I think I talked about Rammstein's Zeit single from the album of the same name. And that's still on my new releases on my Spotify, but I think, yeah, I already mentioned that. So that it was my favorite out of this list of songs, but The Smile's pretty cool. I like it. It grooves along. Oh, what am I thinking? That wasn't my favorite. There's two new songs from Crosses. Chino Marino, singer from the Deftones side project, that quite honestly, with some of the stuff going on in Deftones, I always hope there's more Deftones. But if they decide to call it quits, break up, whatever, like some speculate on the Reddits of the internet, Crosses is a pretty fun project for Chino to hop on and get a lot of work done with if he's down, if that's his intention. Another Team Sleep album would be great. Another album from Palms would be good. But Crosses released two new singles. One is called Initiation, and the other one's called Protection. They both have very 80s, very Depeche Mode kind of vibe to them. A little bit darker than some of the stuff that was on their debut album or some of these covers they've done recently. And so that would be my favorite out of these new releases. Initiation, Protection by Crosses. Hope it's part of a larger album and not just a quick single. So yeah, check out Crosses, The Smile, Rammstein, The Keel 47. Can't speak for Decapitated. Maybe I'll give it a listen and we'll talk about it next time. With that, any other music news? Just that there's a Gamma show coming up on April 1st at the Emporium Sports Bar here in Fort Collins. If you can make it, come out. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be our second show after having to cancel shows due to COVID. So hopefully this means we can get a lot more shows under our belt and really get out there and get going. But listen to Gamma Pa's new single, Slow Dracula, and it'll be a good time. Party time for your ears. All right, with that, we are going to move on to movie news, or just movie reviews in general. I would do more movie news on here if I felt like it was worthwhile. One of my favorite sites to go to is collider.com. If you're a regular listener and you know of another site that isn't filled with ads and speculation, let me know. But this is kind of my go-to. It seems pretty consistent. But really not a lot. Not a lot of stuff. Let's get into movies before I get into any TV shows. I am stumbling over my own tongue today. What's weird is this is like episode 67, I believe. And sometimes just jumping in, you're like, I still get a little nerve-wracked jumping into these podcasts. I think I'm getting more and more comfy with the solo podcast thing. But yeah, let's slow it down. Let's not stumble over my tongue so much. Movies that I've watched recently. I watched Extracts. This is kind of a low-key favorite comedy of mine. It's getting kind of old. Came out in 2009. So, holy shit. It stars Jason Bateman, Mila Kunis, Kristen Wiig, Ben Affleck, and probably one of my favorite roles of his as just like this druggy douche who's the friend of Jason Bateman. J.K. Simmons is in it as a perfect kind of asshole too. T.J. Miller. He's a band member of a group called God's Cock in the film, which is a pretty great metal band name. I think it's a little almost as good as the band name Decapitated. Anyway, it's a really low-key movie. In general, Jason Bateman's wife, Kristen Wiig, is not giving it up, always putting on sweatpants, and he wants to get laid, and he's kind of sick of his life, wants to sell his company that makes extracts like vanilla flavor and cookie dough and all this stuff. Then things go awry after he takes Xanax, I think, or something like that. It's also, yeah, this is the important part. It's directed by Mike Judge. For those that don't know, he's the man responsible for Office Space, Beavis and Butthead, King of the Hill, Silicon Valley, Idiocracy. Like, his track record is really great. And I always feel like his stuff gets underappreciated and then just slowly becomes more and more loved as time goes on. Maybe Beavis and Butthead was fully appreciated, maybe even a bit too much when it first came out, and people were obsessed with it and just doing the voice. And so, people are like, I don't know, it's not that funny. But I challenge you to go just look up Beavis and Butthead reacting to music videos on YouTube. I think that's still up there, or at least some of it. And it still makes me giggle. Just them laughing at watching a White Zombie video or Michael Jackson or whatever is it's a good time. That being said, I don't think this film had quite that big of an impact. I remember seeing it in theaters with my buddy. As I scroll through the reviews, I'm seeing a lot of 2 stars, 3 stars. Ouchie. I gave it 4. This is by no means a masterpiece. We'll read a review here by Tincho. He gave it 2 stars. He said, I've seen funnier shit in gas station toilets, but Mila Kunis is hot and the plot is insane enough to watch. Fuck you, Tincho. But he is correct. Mila Kunis is hot. That is true. I don't know. I'm not seeing a lot of worthwhile stuff like this. This one didn't have any stars. Let's read this. Easily Judge's worst film, but there'll be a stapler tattooed to my leg until the day I die, so I guess that makes me a little biased. Obviously an Office Space fan. With that, we'll move on to something that I liked less, but probably more people consider a classic, which is The Killing by Stanley Kubrick. I gave it 3 stars. Barely finished it. I think I'm realizing something. I don't like noirs. The new Batman's a noir. I like that, but it had enough Batman stuff to make me like, yeah, Batman. And so maybe I do in this right context, but I feel like I've watched a fair amount of noirs lately, and I might have already even bitched about this, but yeah, Angel Heart, Nightmare Alley, The Killing, Chinatown. I just don't give a fuck. And another thing I don't really give a fuck about is any movies made before the 1960s. I'm sure there's stuff I would love, and I still try. Don't worry, I'm still trying. But when any movie is in black and white and just starts with like the credits are rolling, and it has like the multiple punctuation to their name, and it's like off to the right side of the screen, it's like The Killing by Stanley Kubrick. I just don't give a fuck. Like, it feels like it's made by racism, not a racist. Just the racism of the 1950s feels like it just shat these movies out. It's like, hey, Donald, why don't you shut your mouth? You don't deserve equal rights right now. It's just, I can't. The dialogue is pretty good in this. I'll give it that. But yeah, it's so old timey, and I just don't give a fuck. And I keep telling myself, well, this is just a product of its time, and you should appreciate it for what it is. But yeah, I don't care. Let's read some of these reviews, though. Brady Childs, 5-star, says no spoilers, but the last 30 minutes of this fucking slap. I'll rewatch the last 30 minutes because like maybe I was already starting to fade a bit, but there's another one by Matt Goldberg who says he gave it 4 stars out of 5. He said a great noir and even better suitcase ad. Yeah. And you'll come across these lists of Stanley Kubrick's best films. We even did a top 10 Stanley Kubrick's films. I had mentioned that I hadn't watched this one. And so far, like I anticipated, anything that was like older of his, I just don't give a shit. I can recognize the camera work and the snappy dialogue. I can appreciate it for what it is, but at the same time, I never want to watch this again. I don't know. I used to talk about this with my buddy Dan, who's like really into old cinema. And he's like, you can't be a fan of cinema if you don't appreciate the old stuff. And I disagree. I'm a gigantic fan of cinema. And holy shit, I can barely get into stuff from the 60s. But at least there, interesting things start happening for me. Is it just because I like color? Is that all it is? If this was colorized, would I like it more? I'm like, ooh, she's in a red dress. I don't think so. I think it's a listen here, doll. I'm gonna go steal that money, and if you say anything, I'll pop you one. Like, ugh. I'm also like not into certain eras in history. I've come around on the Old West, or not even the Old West. Let's put it like this: the 1800s in general. I've become more and more fascinated with it as time has gone on. I've really come around because I keep trying. I keep trying to understand these things. But the 1800s in general, not for me. I don't like it. Bunch of racist cowboys, manifest destiny, um, Old West, Civil War, just bleh. It's just a bunch of fucking assholes. And I feel the same way about the 50s. It's like, idiots telling me I'll pop you one. You better not be a commie, Carol. Carol the Commie. Starring Stanley Kubrick. Yeah, I beat that into the ground, but I mean it. 1800s, 1950s. Just don't give a shit. A lot of the a lot of the dark ages. I try to get more into that stuff and just but yeah, Roman history, pretty fascinating. Chinese history, it's extensive, but I continually go back to it. Man. Anyway, let's move on. Those are the only 2 movies I watched since the last episode. And beyond that, I've kind of been trying to check out some new shows. I watched Winning Time, which I think I mentioned on the last episode. That is John C. Reilly. Yeah, I did. And Adam McKay. It's about the Lakers dynasty. Still really good. Episode 3, obviously exaggerated a little bit, but it works because it's that type of a show. So that's kind of been my Sunday viewing. Finally tried out that show that everybody seems to be talking about, Euphoria. And it's a really dirty show and makes me depressed. And I don't know if I'm going to hang on for it. It's got a lot of great camera work, and the inner dialogue of Zendaya's characters is good. And I like that it has exposure for a trans character and certain perspectives that I don't know that I've seen on camera before, but it's really dark. And specifically just reminding me how filthy and dirty a lot of guys can be, especially in high school. And yeah, it's a little depressing, and it's been said ad nauseum in a lot of podcasts, but I will say that it is a little weird being 35 and like watching these I don't know, I don't think they're trying to be sexy, but like sex scenes with kids that are supposed to be in high school, but they're really played by 25-year-olds. It's all, I don't know. Yeah. Would I recommend it though? If you're into that, if you're into really dark high school drama bullshit and being reminded how fucked up people can be, then yeah, it might be for you. Uh, I'll maybe give it a couple more episodes and see where it goes. I was gonna do that and then Succession, which I also hear is good, but it just didn't. It was another one of those shows where I don't think this appeals to me. Is this even made for me and my tastes? I mean, Succession might as well take place in the 1950s. With that, perhaps let's just move on. I'm gonna go on to a little bit of news to pad this one out. This seems slightly interesting. This is a little kind of news clip thing I get called Morning Brew. I am not being paid to tell you about them. It's just something I kind of like. It comes in your email and it kind of gives you a brief overview of where the market's at and a couple like business type news stories and things that are just going on. And this one under climate, the headline says companies might be forced to spill their climate secrets. Huh? Let's read it. Under a new SEC proposal, which I had to look up what SEC was, that is the, oh, I had it and then it went away. Hold on a sec. Oh, Securities and Environment Commission. I'm not sure who they report to. I would imagine that's a federal thing, but I'm not sure. Under a new SEC proposal, it won't be enough for companies to show their support for the climate with a tweet on Earth Day for the first time. They'll have to divulge their greenhouse gas emissions. Yesterday, Wall Street's top regulator gave its initial approval to a new rule that would require public companies to disclose A, their emissions, and B, the risks that climate change poses for their business. The goal, SEC Chairman Gary Gensler said, is to create a standardized process for companies to report their role in climate change. That would provide more clarity to businesses on what they need to disclose, more transparency for the growing number of investors who factor a company's sustainability record into their investment decisions. Because of that shareholder pressure, many companies already share their emissions numbers with the public, but without clear requirements, their reports match up about as well as this season's Love is Blind couples. I will say that the jokes from Morning Brew can be pretty fucking cringe. That being said, that is a bit of news I like. Will companies really be held accountable and actually give the proper information? I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in that, but it does seem like a step in the right direction. And there's a really good interview. Let me see if I can pull it up. If any of you have watched Jon Stewart's new show, I only get to watch clips on YouTube because I'm not going to do the Apple TV thing. But he does pretty good interviews, and he did one recently with a guy that's in the energy sector. I forget what his name was. Trying to find it real quick. And if I can, I'll just move right along. But this is Jon Stewart's new show called The Problem with Jon Stewart. Yeah, I'm not finding it, but he did an interview with somebody that's on the board of these different energy companies like ExxonMobil and stuff like that. If you know more specifically what I'm talking about, feel free to write in and help me elaborate more thoroughly. But it was raising the question, which is very valid, that the only way we're going to do anything about climate change is with the help of energy companies, and also these energy companies adopting new technologies. And yeah, we as a society probably have to allow these companies that we don't trust very much to take over and distribute, maybe distribute's not the right word, but basically take over these green energy sectors like wind, solar, geothermal, whatever. And as another guy that I can't remember his name of, he was on Real Time with Bill Maher. He's part of the Nuclear Commission, something like that. Man, I'm fucking this up by not remembering names and such. Should I do a little more prep for these shows? I don't know. I don't really have a lot of time. But this dude was talking about how when it comes to climate change, you got to use every tool in your toolkit, and it's unwise to just throw one away because of inefficiencies or negativities in certain aspects of its use, specifically speaking about nuclear energy, which that can provide a lot of power and it is clean until there's a spill. And a lot of people freak out because of Fukushima and Chernobyl. But if we are going to do anything about climate change, I do think it's something that really needs to be considered. And what I liked about his phrasing is just that it has to be a tool in the toolkit. You can still really expand solar energy and wind energy, geothermal energy, all these things. And perhaps that would help mitigate any risks from nuclear because it wouldn't be our sole source of energy. And obviously, you still need fossil fuels to a certain degree. I read a really good book called Turning Oil into Salt. And that I could find a quick author for. That simply is really good to read in terms of giving you a perspective on how important and how irremovable fossil fuels are from our day-to-day lives. Like, we don't just use oil to start our cars. We do it to power our energy grid, make a lot of things that we need. It's been a while since I read the book, but like things like rubber, this and that. And once again, kind of brain farting the major details, but that's written by Anne Corin and Gal Luft, Luft. It's called Turning into Salt, Energy Independence Through Fuel Choice. And that was my main takeaway from it. There's a lot of really great details and data in that book, but it's talking about how you're never going to get rid of the use of fossil fuels. The idea is to bring it down to a reasonable level, be able to capture the carbon that's emitted from its use while using all these other clean energy options. And I mean, it sounds so simple. I'm a simple man. Just plant way more trees. Can we not just plant more trees? Like, shit going on in the Amazon needs to stop. But yeah, we need to hold these companies accountable. And I think that's where it starts. This whole shaming of the individual because they have to eat a certain kind of food or drive a truck to do their job in the Midwest or anything like that. It's only sowing division and creating the blame game amongst the have-nots in this country or around the world. And quite frankly, I think that's by design. They'd rather we be fighting amongst ourselves than actually holding our governments and industries accountable, corporations accountable. But I don't know. It seems like corporations are leaning more and more into being, I don't even really like using this term because it's been like weaponized as like a negative thing, but being more woke, and that like that's appealing to people. So all these companies are doing performative things to say, hey, look how progressive we are. And even if that is performative and fake and they're just simply trying to get your dollar another way, if that's the game we got to play to at least do something about climate change, I've always felt that doing something about climate change, and I'm cool with nuclear energy, but as far as nuclear armament, that's like another huge concern. Obviously, right now it's kind of in the news, even though I think Putin's a pussy and full of shit. But those are my two bigger concerns. Things like gun control and abortion, and I don't know, the best way to run your economy, whether it's like unfettered capitalism. Somebody pointed out to me, a good friend of mine, how much he hates that term. People just using unfettered. It's just like, then everybody uses it after that. It's the same thing as woke or triggered or anything else. It becomes like one of those words, and then it's kind of a word that sticks in your head. So it gets used in a good way, in a bad way, and an overdone way. What I would like to do personally is just yeet the economy, just really yeet it. And maybe we could do something about all this. But yeah, all I'm trying to say, yeah, us saying we're going to live off the grid and live off of fruit shavings, I don't think is a solution to climate change. You ain't stopping these companies. You need to do something about the companies to make our climate not die. So I'm definitely for that to a certain degree. Let's see what else is in this thing. The trans swimmer who is a woman who used to be a man, has been going around all my social media, and yeah, I think the main point I take away from that is it is funny how much transphobic people care about a sport they probably never paid attention to in their lives. They just found a way to be transphobic and say, see, they're coming for us. They're not coming for you. And I think it is okay to wonder about maybe we reclassify based on like a weight scale or a weight and age scale. Like, because I don't know. Yeah, there is that truth that biologically speaking, that woman has the muscle density from being formerly in a man's body. I already feel like I'm tripping over myself to just try to see the other angle on it, because it is such a minuscule little thing. Like, I don't care. Like, she was placed 400 or something when she was in male swimming competitions, and then placed first when she competed as a female, and that is something. Do I care? No. And it is funny how much transphobic people really care, because they, trying to make it about standing up for women and their ability to compete. But when has that side of things ever giving a fuck about women unless it somehow affects their morality, you know. Uh, I don't know. It's a weird one. It does feel like a bit of that manufactured controversy, just kind of churned up and thrown out there, meant to make people fight about it. But yeah, I do you put an asterisk next to the name and just say, hey, used to be in a man body though. I don't know. That seems fucked up. She's just a woman. She won. I have no problem thinking of her as a woman, which I think is the most important thing. But yeah, I don't know. Tell me how I'm wrong. Um, People that are pro trans, I don't want to hear how I'm wrong from transphobic people. You're full of shit and you're hateful. I don't need to hear that shit. I've heard plenty of that kind of talk all my life growing up in Utah. And yes, Utah, you are a particular area when it comes to transphobia, homophobia, judging people for their sexuality or their religious leanings. So, and guess what? That syncs up real well with republicanism, especially these days. So, yeah, I don't have any interested in hearing the right wing Republican perspective on any of this. But I do think that there are people like me who might, you could maybe classify as classical liberal, you know, kind of just like, yeah, get the government out of my life, leave me alone. It's not libertarian because you need government for certain things, of course, but yeah, don't censor me. Let me say whatever the fuck I want to say. Let me do me, do what drugs I want to do, all that stuff, which is pretty libertarian. I think I came across that question the other day of what's the difference between a classical liberalism and libertarianism, and I think one person put it that classical liberalism still believes the government is there for the people and to provide specific things for the people, but in general that should be really mitigated, and that libertarianism is an extreme of that, almost to the point of hating government, and it's just an extreme wing of classic liberalism. I got off point there, not because I'm trying to get off the subject, just that, yeah, there is a bit of the weird shaming that the left does, that I think I do agree with the stuff that they're shaming people about. I just don't think that they should shame them. They should help them see from their perspective, which I can almost already hear the voice saying, yeah, but we've had to be patient with fucking right wing, homophobe, transphobe, sexist, racist douchebags our entire life, and we're sick of fucking holding their hand and explaining things. And I get that. But still, it's like we got to find a way to communicate better in this country, I think. And I don't know, that is really only like a tiny little minute element of the trans issue, and I only call it the trans issue because it's talked about as such nowadays for the last few years. And that's the only one that it really does kind of raise a question. It's like, oh, well, I guess if you did have the muscle mass from that, do you make a new league or a competition or do it by weight, or you just say good for you and you won, because there are statistically really not that many trans individuals competing, whether they go into men's competitions or women's competitions. And I'll also admit there's a ton of this I really don't know. You could really like show me this and this and that, and I'll be, oh wow, okay, I didn't know that. But I will say that the backlash against this woman is mostly just hateful people trying to find a way to discredit thinking more freely about sex and gender and what that all means, and individual choice and individual freedom, which it'll never stop being funny to me that um, liberals, or sorry, not liberals, libertarians, or people that say that they're for limited government control in their lives, want to control other people so much. And I think you would find that if people that were conservative actually believed some of their stuff, like there's certain aspects I'll never be down with, the hyper religious element, which wasn't always there. And I don't care about abortion. I think the science of it is pretty clear. So there's certain things that are just like, yeah, no, whether you really mean it or not doesn't matter. But things like limited government and get the government out of my life, that should apply to what you do with your own gender, your own sex, what you take into your body, when you decide to check out. Yeah, the government shouldn't have much to do with that. And but these tend to be hyper religious people that are probably a little more interested in creating a theocracy, and which to me almost always leads to feudalism. Eventually they think they'll be the rich ones because they know how to work the market, and then they'll have the money and they'll be in charge. And that's why libertarianism doesn't even fully work to me, because it exchanges the tyranny of government for the tyranny of corporatism and the rich. You need both, and they need to balance each other out. And so, yeah, I'll boil it down. There's plenty of conservative ideals that are worth taking another look at, and at the very least are a good counterbalance to things that are happening on the left. And I say the left because the Democratic Party is just Republican light for the most part. Did you know that back in the day, parties used to have liberal, moderate, and conservative wings? Both parties did. Yeah, like imagine that. There's a liberal Republican and a liberal Democrat that agreed on some legislation that a conservative Democrat and a conservative Republican did not agree with. That was like as close as America got to having more than two parties in a way, to me. And I think stuff worked a little more efficiently. Once again, a historian might be able to lay out how it didn't, but I feel like there's always arguments for one end of that or the other. But yeah, we need that loyal opposition. And as of right now, I can't trust the Republican Party. There's nothing about it I can sign on to because it's so disingenuous, and quite frankly, I feel like it's been bought out by dirty money. And not to say that all that bad money and everything isn't working its fingers into the Democratic Party. It definitely is. I mean, take Nancy Pelosi or Manchin for instance. But it's the party that everybody on different sides of reason are working from. And hopefully, I think that there is probably plenty of conservatives that are trying to recontextualize the Republican Party, and they're just not getting the airtime or the forum that they need to make that happen. But yeah, I can't take the Republican Party seriously at all. And unfortunately, right now it's conservative corporate neoliberals in the Democratic Party and progressives fighting over what to do about certain issues in this country. And so when it comes down to wokeness or cancel culture, stuff like that, I think the discussion could be revamped a little bit. I'm not entirely sure how. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that rant. Holy shit. This is why I don't always do news stories on this podcast. Double check. All right. That's another thing I liked about the Morning Brew is it's a short little snippet and it'll give you bad jokes, but it doesn't give you a lot of like personal opinion. That's why you come to me, my personal opinion, because it matters, right? I don't know. I don't mean to beat you over the head with my politics. It's just that is what's on my mind. Obviously things going on in Ukraine too, but that's something I would like to speak even less on simply because I feel like I don't have the proper information and context to talk about it. I hope all of you know that when I'm discussing this trans woke Republican Democrat back and forthness, most of it is just me expressing my feelings about it more so than anything I would say I know. Just think about that stuff and think harder about it than Tucker Carlson would have you think about it. That's all I'm asking. And but this is just a hangout. If you disagree with me or think I should know about something in particular, feel free to write us at fakoshka@gmail.com or thejacobwayneshow@gmail.com, and I'll read it on air and decide if I agree with it or not or whatever. But with that, we're going to go on to this day in history. Let's get the soundboard ready. Today, March 22nd, 1976, Reese Witherspoon was born. Hold on a second. I got one for that. You got it. It's going to be worth it. Reese Witherspoon was born. There we go. Also, Andrew Lloyd Webber, a British composer, a name I know, but I know nothing about him. James Patterson, American author, another person I don't know anything about. Stephen Sondheim, another name he was born in 1930. Another name I've heard but don't know what he does. And William Shatner, 1931, I came out of my mom's vagina. Yeah. Thank you. Stamp Act was passed in 1765. On this day in 1765, the British Parliament passed the Stamp Act, which placed taxes on various printed papers in the colonies. Highly unpopular, the legislation was particularly contentious in America.
666, the mark of the beast!
Yes. Special counsel Robert Mueller delivered his report on Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election to the Attorney General William Barr in 2019. It stated that while this report does not conclude that the President Donald Trump committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. Which, if you just look at how certain Republicans cozy up to Russia currently, there's just something going on there. I know something was going on with the NRA, but I really can't remember the details. But
China.
Not China, just Trump. It's the only Trump I have. Let's see here. Oh, the U.S. Senate approved the Equal Rights Amendment, which stated equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. But it failed to be ratified by the requisite majority of 38 states before the deadline.
What the hell is even that?
That's what I'm saying. Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama, who achieved success as a self-described obsessional artist, known for her extensive use of polka dots and for her infinity mirror rooms, was born in 1929.
Yes.
And then I'll end with this nice little bit of sports business. the Montreal Amateur Athletic Association won ice hockey's first Stanley Cup in 1849.
Naughty! Naughty jungle of love!
All right, everybody. It's been a lovely episode. I hope you didn't mind the politics rant too much, but when they happen, you know? With that, I'm going to sign off, and you have a good rest of your week. Ta-ta! Thank you for listening to The Jacob Wayne Show. If you would like to contact us, please write us at fakoshka@gmail.com. That is FAKOSHKA@gmail.com. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Simply search The Jacob Wayne Show and it should pop right up. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. Please write us. It helps add content to the show and makes the show even better for you, the listener. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome